It's great to be here with you today. Again, welcome everyone. It's great to be with you here today. My name is Sarah Hallis, and I am the Experiential Education Coordinator at SuccessWorks, and we are here for Taste of Success Higher Education. So really appreciate everyone's time in being here. We are going to get started with this fantastic group of alumni panelists. And so we'll start. I'll just invite each alumni panelist to introduce yourself and talk a little bit about who you are and what you do and your connection to higher education. And then we will open it up for questions from students or from me, perhaps even from each other. So we'll go ahead and start. I'm just going to call on each of you. We'll start with Maren today.
Great, thanks. So hi everyone. My name is Marin Harris. I graduated both with my undergrad and my graduate degree from UW-Madison, so I am a very big fan, obviously. So I graduated with my undergrad in history and geography, as well as a master's degree in higher education student affairs in the School of Education. So I currently work at Northern Kentucky University. It is actually 71 degrees here today, so that's exciting. I am an academic advisor also in the College of Education here, so I work one-on-one with students, helping them plan their coursework as well as their path to licensure, which is kind of unique to the education field. But thanks again for having me be here.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Great to have you with us, Maren. And I'm going in alphabetical order here. So next we're going to go to Molly.
Sure. Thanks, Sarah. So my name is Molly Reinhardt. I use she, her pronouns, and I work at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, and I am Director of Pre-Professional Advising. So what does that mean? That means that I oversee pre-health and pre-law advising at UW-Madison. So these are advising career services units designed to support the career exploration, development of all students and alumni from UW-Madison, any of our students from all schools and colleges at UW-Madison who are pursuing either careers in healthcare or considering and applying to going to law school. I graduated from UW-Madison with my bachelor's degree in sociology in 2005, and that was a winding path to graduation. And I started working at UW-Madison in 2007 after time as an AmeriCorps Vista, and I have been here ever since. Eventually, I graduated with my master's degree in Cultural Foundations of Education and Community Engagement. I chose to go through UW-Milwaukee. It was an amazing program for me. Everyone goes on a different path. And I've been in a few different roles at UW-Madison, but most recently for about 3.5 years directing these advising units. Happy to answer any questions and share more about that. Thanks for having me.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Molly. Appreciate you as well. Next, we're going to go to Caroline. Caroline, please go ahead and share a little bit about your professional journey and your current work.
Hi, everyone. I'm Caroline Sullivan. I am a Associate Director of Development at the University of Wisconsin Foundation. So we are the fundraising arm to the UW. I specifically support the Department of Mechanical Engineering within the College of Engineering, but ultimately our goal is to support the entire university. So I work with donors who may be engineering alums, but give to the Chancellor's Scholarship Fund or give to another area on campus that really aligns with philanthropic goals that they may have. I graduated from UW in 2012 with a degree in journalism and communication arts, thinking I would be in agency life, and wanted to still stay in Madison, which at the time when I graduated, there weren't a lot of agencies in Madison that allowed me to stay here. But I found one, quickly learned agency life is not for me. So a year and a half later, I was fortunate enough to find an a job in the digital role at the Alumni Association before we formally merged with the foundation to be the Wisconsin Foundation and Alumni Association. It's quite the mouthful, WFA. And I've worked in annual giving and marketing and managed a team of 4 to get our annual giving efforts off the ground, and then found myself in frontline development. So I absolutely love it. You know, when you have someone who just wants to give back, you can't help but love that work. So, and it's great to support the wonderful work that all of our faculty and professors are doing on campus. So I'm really excited to be here.
Thank you so much, Caroline. And I wanted to just make a mention of the note in the chat about thanking you for your work and how it's critical to our operations and supporting students.
Thank you.
So great to have you with us. And finally, we would like to invite Brian to share. Welcome, Brian.
Welcome and good afternoon. My name is Dr. Brian Vivona. I am an assistant professor of human resource development at Northeastern Illinois University. A couple of the panelists have mentioned meandering paths, and I could not have taken a more meandering path. Graduated from University of Wisconsin before most of you were born in 1986. Was a police officer for 23 years. And while I was a police officer, I was a crime scene technician for a homicide task force. Returned to get my master's degree at Northern Illinois University in adult and continuing education, then proceeded to get my doctorate from Northern, retired from the police force, and now I have been, this is my second tenure track job. I was at a small university called Governor's State University, which is a minority serving institution in southern Will County. Transferred to Northeastern Illinois University, which is a federally designated Hispanic serving institution, a minority serving institution. And lastly, I also am a research affiliate with the University of Wisconsin Center for Research and College Workforce Transitions in the Wisconsin School of Educational Research.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Yeah. Molly's making a mention about your path and that you might win the meandering path competition here. So yeah, wonderful. Thanks so much. So the first question I'd like to ask you all is a general question here, but I think an important one for students. How did you know where to start looking for a job in this field and what steps you needed to take? And whomever would like to start, feel free.
Well, I can go ahead and start. I began this as an adjunct. For people that are unfamiliar with faculty, and I was unfamiliar with faculty when I was in undergrad, so I mean, you just thought that this professor was a professor. You didn't really know what they did other than teach their coursework. In higher ed, there are faculty paths are many. There's adjuncts, there's contingent, there's contract, non-tenure track, and tenure track faculty. So there's a lot of different faculty out there. I started when I finished my master's degree teaching as an adjunct in a community college. And so I was teaching a couple of classes here and there, mostly for fun, because community college faculty do not make a ton of money. But I enjoyed the work. I enjoyed working with the students. It was really enjoyable. And then as I developed my experience as an adjunct teaching many classes, once I was in my doctoral program, I moved on to teaching at Lewis University, which is a small Catholic university in southwest side of Chicago, and then taught at Northern Illinois University as kind of a contingent faculty. And then after I got my doctorate, it came down to looking for tenure track positions. So this was a long process. I began teaching as an adjunct in 2000, but I did not finish my doctoral degree until 2012. No, 2000, yeah, 2012. So this was not something that I just jumped into. This was a very gradual process. Um, and my experience is unusual. Many other people go from bachelor's to master's to doctorate to the faculty in that path. So you'll find a lot of your faculty, if you sit down and talk to them, many of them have taken that traditional path where going from, again, undergrad to grad to doctorate to faculty positions. But many of us have also taken this kind of slower path, especially in professional programs. So you'll find people in the law school, you'll find people in management and business that may have had a career in business, maybe have had a career in as a lawyer, and have decided they enjoy teaching and they come back to teach. So there's a number of different ways to get to where I am today. There's no one set perfect way.
Thank you. Anyone else want to weigh in on that question?
I can go. So tips for looking for a job. I had no idea what a development director was when I was in school. And when I found out what it was, when I started working in space and place that had development directors, it baffled me because I hate getting asked for money. And so why would I want to do that as a job? But it's different than someone, we're Girl Scout cookie season. It's different than you going and selling Girl Scout cookies as much as we love them, but it's finding a passion for someone who wants to make a very big difference on a campus and in a place that means a lot to them. And those are very serious conversations, and there's a lot of thought and process and heart behind those. And really, you're not really ever making an ask to someone to say, will you give X amount of dollars to support this? You're really creating a relationship more than anything. And so I realized I really loved working with people and talking to people and just having conversations. And that's something that I've enjoyed even throughout college. That's why I wanted to be, in journalism or advertising, because it meant kind of telling stories and talking to people. And so that's, I didn't realize that existed. And so finding jobs was not something, I didn't look for jobs to what I'm doing right now. But I will say that when I was looking for jobs, every single opportunity within the journalism school or the communication arts program that I was in, there's often, hidden treasures in the people and the faculty members that you're working with. Brian, you just talked about that. Or like the speakers that are brought in to speak to your classes. Go up to them afterwards and ask them if you can have their business card or an email and just have a phone call or a Zoom call, or meet them in person if they're locally, because those are the people that will remember who you are when your name maybe pops up on a list of people who have applied for a position at their company. Or they may know someone that is at a different company and hiring. So I would say, don't be afraid of networking. The people that come to your classes or spaces and places to talk want you to do that. They wouldn't be doing that just for fun. I mean, they would, but they still want to be able to say, like, can I help a student out? I love helping out Badgers. Maybe I can pay it forward. So I think you have to be not afraid to put yourself out there, because in this day and age, you have to kind of find jobs sometimes not just through looking at Indeed or online. You're going to find it through the people you know.
I can share a little bit too. I think I have sort of the opposite of what Brian shared. So in my undergrad, about my sophomore year, I got a job working in the history department here at UW-Madison. And I realized after working there for about maybe a week or so, I was like, whoa, this is cool. Like this is what I want to do, this type of thing, that where all of these people, their whole job was helping this big, really cool place work and this really cool place run. And so that's sort of what got me thinking, okay, I want to work at a college. And I didn't really know, that's about as far as I got by the time I graduated, is, okay, I want to work at a college. Now what do I do? What I decided to do was just get any job I could at UW-Madison that was full-time. So I started working in the administration at the School of Education right out of my bachelor's degree. And that really helped me sort of get my foot in the door, get a chance to talk to my colleagues, get a sense of what I really liked about higher education. I realized very quickly that I liked working with students, and like, to me, students are really the center of a campus, so that's kind of why I'm in the job that I am in now. But I think for those of you who are undergrads, I think it's really beneficial to use the space that you're in to kind of explore this career field, especially if you have a job on campus. Look to get a job in an office, or look to, you know, sit in on an advising appointment, or look to, I don't know, anyone else. You know, I think there's a lot of jobs that are available for students, both undergrad and grad, on campus, and it's a great way to get a sense of being involved. I have a couple of friends who also got their start working at the union on campus, and I think that's another really great place, even if it's not job related, if you're serving on boards and sort of thinking about student programming and student engagement. Those are really good ways that you right now can kind of start to explore this career field.
Thank you very much for that, Maren. I do want to hear from Molly on this as well, if you'd like to share. Higher education is quite fascinating in the sense that it's not necessarily the career that you know, you think about as a kid and say, oh, when I grow up, I want to be in higher education, right? And I think many of us can relate to that sentiment. And yet, higher education employs a large number of folks in a vast array of opportunities. So it's exciting to hear that your experience as an undergraduate really solidified your interest in this field. So thank you, Molly.
And I think it's particularly important to talk about how, when so many people, they think higher education, they only think faculty. Faculty are such a small part of what keeps the machine running. I mean, we're like the smallest part. You know, there's academic staff, there's non-academic staff, there's so many roles that are so crucial to the success of a university. And I can give you one little anecdote. We had to lay off a lot of our staff, and it really harmed our students. All of a sudden they're like, wow, my transcripts aren't getting processed as fast. I can't get an advising appointment. I can't get a financial aid appointment. These jobs are critical, and they're very rewarding.
I appreciate the comments of everyone on this panel. I think it's such a great example of the breadth. And Brian, to your point, that there are so many different types of roles at the university, from instruction to research, depending on the type of institution. You mentioned community college. UW-Madison is one example of a type of higher education institution. There are so many different types of institutions. And I absolutely did not know what a director of pre-professional advising was. In fact, it didn't exist until I created it 3 years ago. There was no position at UW-Madison called a director of pre-professional advising. So I wouldn't have known to aim for it. And I didn't know that I was aiming for a career in higher education at all. I mentioned that I graduated in 2005, with my bachelor's degree. I had a winding path within the education sphere, not just within undergrad, but in high school and in elementary school, middle school. I moved around quite a bit all across the country for a variety of reasons. And I could see the differences in the educational environments, the differences in access, experiences of students. And some of what I learned, I only know after reflecting back on it. I could not have articulated that at the time that I was moving around, but it absolutely, and it has informed my work, and it absolutely directed me to know that I was interested in education. I was interested in figuring out what are students' experiences in education. How do some kids thrive in certain environments and others don't? how do we shape those environments? How do some make it to UW-Madison, and why do some leave? Which was my case. I left after the second semester started, my freshman year, and made some interesting choices. Later went to a community college and then transferred back to UW-Madison. And so throughout my K-12 and higher education bachelor's experience, I was having my own experiences and reflecting on those experiences. And I landed on, I am definitely interested in education and supporting community and connections among students. So I got a job as an AmeriCorps Vista, which was in Madison, Wisconsin, and I was a coordinator of preschool literacy and math activities and family engagement. It was an amazing experience. I was in that role for a year. It was in the Northport community, building relationships with students, their parents, the community center leaders, and really understanding the strengths and the resilience of these communities and all of the barriers that were set up against them to access opportunity, to have a good experience in the education system. It informed my work greatly. And then I knew that I really wanted to focus on equity in education. So I went from, everybody has a different experience with education, to I'm pretty sure I'm interested in education as a career. Then nailing down equity in education is what I really want to focus on. There happened to be a position in our College of Engineering that opened up for a temporary administrative assistant, and I needed a job. It was very interesting to me. It was in the Diversity Affairs office, and I applied for and got that job. So I was a temporary project position, administrative assistant, really understanding the inner workings of UW-Madison, of the College of Engineering, of the experiences of underrepresented students and marginalized students within the College of Engineering. That is what solidified I am going to stay in higher education for a period of time. And that is when I really started to consider, what does a career path look like in higher education? And I do love the College of Engineering. I ended up becoming their assistant director of the Diversity Affairs office about a year later, directing our pre-college and outreach program. So again, bridging that pre-college and undergraduate side of things, understanding the experiences of students in high school, their families, and the transition into the university, and how that can be very bumpy. Again, in part due to the structures that we have set up that aren't necessarily always set up to have students access the resources in an equitable way, differential experiences. And that's how my career went on. So I was exploring these different experiences and realizing, what are my interests? What's my why? So my career path has been defined by identifying my why, doing the best possible job I can in the position that I'm in, and continuing on from there. So I could talk for quite a long time on different career paths, but I went from pre-college to supporting undergraduates, and then I was shoulder tapped actually to become an interim director of the units that I ended up permanently directing right now, the pre-health advising center and the pre-law advising center, because I was known for keeping that why in mind, equity in mind, and really valuing campus partnerships and relationships. We cannot be effective with students or as a university if we don't know one another, if we're not partnering with one another, if we're not listening to one another. And I never approached my career path in terms of making it up the ladder. I would not be where I am today, and I certainly wouldn't have made any positive impact, in my opinion, if my whole goal had been working my way up the ladder. You never know who you meet, what their role is, how you can benefit each other and the students we all work with. So relationships, collaboration, communication, and trusting that the relationships that I'm building will positively impact students as well as my own career, ultimately.
Thank you for that, and the reflections from all of you. It's making me think about my first full-time position in higher education after my graduate degree, and my supervisor saying relationships are the most important thing to develop as you're working in supervision. I worked in residence life at the time, right? So relationships are really the crux of much of this work. So thank you for that. The next question we want to ask is, what do you find really exciting and engaging in your work, and what is challenging? And you know, this has been a particularly, as it's been mentioned briefly, a particularly different year, I guess I'll say, for lack of a better word, in higher education than in any of our previous years in the field. So yeah, keeping that in mind as well. So what you find really exciting and engaging in your work, and what is challenging?
I'll jump in on this one, mostly because I was just talking about it with a colleague. I think the most exciting is in development, at least in, I think in higher ed in general, you have to be pretty entrepreneurial because, you know, I work with donors who say, I want to support a very specific initiative, but I want it to be within the College of Engineering, and also I want them to have an interest in you know, global health and also environment. And so sometimes there are scenarios where we don't have opportunities to make sure that their impact for their gift is possible. It's just there's too many parameters for us to award a scholarship, or, you know, there's just not a need for it on campus, as much as I hate to say that. But those scenarios that are kind of tricky, where I have to collaborate with colleagues and figure out a way that we can make this experience for someone who wants to give a major gift is really cool and really fun, because there's no rule book, and so we kind of write the rules as we go. And it's really gratifying to see when a gift is closed, and you know, a donor meets a student that they've supported in a scholarship, or a donor sees their name in the named lecture hall that they've named, or a named lab. It's really exciting. We are fortunate in the fact that we're hoping to build a new building for the College of Engineering, and so that's been a huge part of my role for many years now, and to actually see it be part of potentially the governor's capital budget has been just incredible. But on the flip side, that's probably one of the most challenging things, right? Like, we are at the mercy of people not understanding how the funding model works for a public university like the University of Wisconsin. You know, they think we get a lot of money from the government, and it doesn't matter who's in office, Republican or Democrat, the slice of pie that goes to higher education is getting smaller and smaller, just because there's more things that need to be supported. And that is, again, to be clear, nothing against who is in the governor's office. It's just the way of the world. But there's oftentimes a lot of people who assume those things, and no matter how many times you can converse with them, that's never going to change. But to be quite honest with you, those are the people that probably aren't the people that we want to bring and make a difference to our campus, right? Like, we want to spend our time with people that are really thoughtful and strategic with how they want to give back to the university and understand why their money is needed. So that I think would be the most challenging, is the red tape of whoever is a governor and whoever is in some type of office of political power just is not in our control, as much as people would like it to be.
Well, I think Caroline did hit on the biggest challenge. Is higher ed is an extremely bureaucratic institution. It is very complex to get things done in a. We are not the most agile of institutions. Things have to go through committees, and obviously there are all sorts of there's layers and layers of bureaucracy. So that's probably the biggest challenge. And again, misconceptions in terms of funding is also a big challenge, as Caroline had said. You know, there are public universities that get as little as 5 or 10% of their operating budget from the state. So that's something that, again, is always going to be problematic. But the thing that is the most exciting for me is doing research. Now, even though Northeastern is not a research intensive university, I've been very fortunate to be part of Matt Hora's group at the CCWT, and the research we're doing is super, super cool. And I'll just give you an example of one of the things that we're working on right now. We're doing a community-based participatory action research project with Muslim students here at Northeastern. And we have four female Muslim students that are interviewing other Muslims on campus to talk about issues of religious minoritization and acceptance and diversity and career path challenges, especially from first generation students. First generation students face a whole different different career challenges and barriers. So that's really the exciting thing. That's just one piece of research I'm doing. I'm doing 4 or 5 different pieces of research, and that's probably the thing that's the most exciting. It's the thing that gets me up early in the morning to get to work, and that's something I really like. However, being a teaching institution, I really do enjoy seeing how higher education can change people's lives. We have students that may have ended up being, working in retail or working, Instacart or working Uber, and that's it. But they were able to get this college education and get some professional knowledge and skills, and it's been life changing. I've had students come back to me and send me emails and say, "This is what I'm doing now." And and thanks to Northeastern, I would never be doing this. And so it's very rewarding. And I'm sure the people that are involved in advising really could see that a lot. How rewarding it is to see how you could really make a positive impact in people's lives.
Thank you. Anyone else want to weigh in on that one?
I'll weigh in as someone who is an advisor. Good segue to me. I think that's such an interesting question, is what's the most rewarding, what's the most difficult or challenging thing. I've been sitting here as I've been listening to you all share. I'm like, oh yeah, that's such a good point. That's such a good point. I think one thing about higher ed is so many of these jobs are so multidimensional. It's almost hard to pin down one thing, because even if your role and what you do every day is so interconnected with everyone else's challenges in their job. So for example, I don't deal with budget whatsoever. I never touch a funding spreadsheet. I used to in my old job, but I do not anymore. But it is very much at the crux of what I do, because I talk to students about finding scholarships. I talk to students about ways to balance work with their class schedule, that kind of thing, because there isn't financial aid that they can get or whatever. So I'm going off the prompt. I apologize. All right. So most exciting, I think, for me is really just that opportunity to work one-on-one with students. One of my favorite things about being an advisor is building those connections with students and hearing about their own personal motivations, why they're in school, what they want to do, the ways that they are thinking about their coursework. It's something that is different for every single person, and it never really gets old, because everybody has their own unique take on kind of what they're doing. And that sounds very idealistic as I say it, but it's really true. I think in terms of what's the most difficult or challenging, I cannot remember who said it, but higher education is, at times it moves slowly, and sometimes it can get really frustrating when I am working with a student and there is some sort of systemic thing that they are running into that I cannot change with them or for them. And so I think that is one thing that I personally find difficult, is helping students navigate these systems and these things that are not necessarily always built for their maximum success. So I think that sometimes is the most challenging to me, in part just because I am someone who works very closely with a lot of the students. So I am very involved in their daily, work against some of these systems. But it's definitely something that I am very happy to be doing, and I get a lot of satisfaction out of when I am able to work with a student to secure financial aid after a deadline, or what be it. So.
Thank you
Thanks
very
to
much.
all of you. I can
Go
share.
ahead. Go ahead, Mom. Yeah.
So thank you for everyone sharing. Yes, to everything you've said and the student piece, absolutely. I mentioned that my why is a driving factor in my work. And to be director of pre-health and pre-law at UW-Madison in the times that we live in, it's a real privilege. Increasing access, equity, and diversity within health professions, within the legal field, within the healthcare system and the legal system, that's huge. And that has been a big part of my why for a long time, and actually get to work not only in these departments, but lead these departments. And more of my role is supervision. I supervise 10 professional staff, and we have an undergrad and graduate staff of 5 to 10 individuals at any given time. And they are dynamic. It's 2 separate centers within one overarching pre-professional advising umbrella. They are so different, all the people, but the why is generally shared. And so one of the most exciting parts of my job, besides being able to supervise and lead the work of pre-health and pre-law advising right now, is to shift from being that direct service advisor most of the time and doing the work on a day-to-day basis to actually supporting staff and mentoring staff, supervising staff, leading from a big picture lens. So it's really exciting to see staff develop, to see them implement their own why and develop a why together. So that is extremely exciting, and it's also extremely challenging. Maren, everyone's comments about the bureaucracy or the barriers that we run up against, students run up against those, and then staff run up against those as well. And so as a supervisor, to be so frustrated sometimes by the barriers, like this structure does not work. And then trying to figure out, how do we shape that? What's my realm of influence? Can I reshape that? And coaching not only staff, but students, and being a middle manager, communicating up and down and across. And so it's exciting and extremely challenging. So it's definitely 3.5 years into this type of middle management role. I'm still learning new things every single day.